Welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. There's an air emergency in the national capital region, with the air quality index nosediving into severe. The air quality has crossed 500. In some parts of the city, it was over 800. Now, these are figures that are way off the charts. New Delhi and its surrounding regions are in the grip of what can only be called an air apocalypse. And joining me to talk about what this means for the residents of India's national capital is Dr. Navneet Sood, pulmonologist. Dr. Sood, welcome to the News9 Plus Show. I wish it had been a better time that we were talking about Delhi.
Surely.
But break down for us what this kind of air quality means for the population of India's national capital.
So I'll start off by saying that I am a pulmonologist, and I've been treating patients of asthma, COPD, ILD, a whole lot of things, the lung disease. So in last 3 days only, I have got about 10 to 15 patients of mine who follow up with me in the OPDs, and they've got admitted in the hospital. And suddenly they come in the night or maybe in early morning, and the emergency guy calls me up that this guy has come and got admitted, and 2 of them are on ventilator. So just to get it in context, the persons who have lung disease, they are doomed in this environment, and those people who have normal lungs, so to say,
Right.
are also going to go into a stage, if this happens for another few years or so, in a stage where these guys already are the persons who had lung disease. So that is the emergency which we are talking about basically.
And how many cigarettes? I mean, there's a very popular, comparison of how many cigarettes people smoke. The equivalent of how many cigarettes people smoke in these areas. How many cigarettes are people in Delhi smoking because of this air quality? The equivalent of how many cigarette packets?
So, general thing is that about you smoke about 10 to 20 cigarettes per day in this pollution. But I have also not seen this type of 900 sort of figures in AQI, and I don't know whether this goes beyond that 20 also. I think 10 to 20 cigarettes you are still smoking without even having touched the cigarette.
Right. And what is the implications of long-term exposure to this kind of pollution, record pollution levels?
I think everybody knows what smoking does. There's a lot of things which it does. And COPDs are there, cancers, lung cancers are there. So nowadays, our cancer, the type of cancers is also determined by a smoker and non-smoker.
Right.
Non-smoker can have cancers, but I think the persons who are having lung cancer in the last maybe of my career in the last 5-7 years has now diametrically shifted. We get cancer patients in ages of 30s and 40s,
Right.
which was so to say unheard when I was doing my post-graduation. So
Right.
cancer was normally a disease of elderly or late adult sort of 50s and 60s.
Yes.
At least that was the lowest. Now that apart, COPD is going to be the largest killer. COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease.
Right,
So that
right.
is basically smoker's asthma in
Yeah.
layman's term. So that is going to be the largest killer in the world in maybe in 2-3 years, with the kind of smoking we have, and with this environment you do not need smoking also for that.
Right. So there's nothing to distinguish a smoker and a non-smoker, the kind of exposure to
So
pollution.
obviously smoker, a person who is a smoker and he's also living in this environment will
Right.
have a significantly higher risk for developing all those sort of things.
Double whammy,
Yeah.
so to speak. Yeah. In fact, we've done this story on, what citizens, exactly what you mentioned, what citizens are going through, what this prolonged exposure to very high pollution levels mean for people. There's a report prepared by one of the leading hospitals in Delhi. Let's take a look.
Smog over cities, toxins in the air, blackened lungs, a spike in lung cancer among non-smokers.
The air quality in Delhi is so horrible. Child born today would be smoking 15 to 20 cigarette equivalent from the very first breath of his life.
60% of India's population doesn't breathe clean air even as per the Indian national standards.
It has huge effect on the lungs. So for ourselves, for our children, our grandchildren, we should be 24/7 concerned about the environment.
Are you getting cancer without smoking? You needn't smoke a cigarette for your lung to turn frighteningly black. Lung cancer cases are seeing a sharp spike among India's non-smokers. Delhi homemaker Neera Srivastav was diagnosed with lung cancer in June 2022.
पूछे उनसे ये क्यों हुआ डॉक्टर साहब, तो डॉक्टर साहब बोले कि देखिए आप स्मोक नहीं करती हैं और आप ड्रिंक भी नहीं करती हैं, तो ये पोल्यूशन है। बोले जो दिल्ली एनसीआर वगैरह में बहुत ज़्यादा पोल्यूशन है।
Nobody in the family drinks or smoke, and we are not in contact of those people who drinks or smoke.
इसी के लिए अपना बचाव करते हैं। देखिए अभी वॉक तो करने के लिए जा नहीं सकते हैं बाहर, इतना भी पोल्यूशन है, और खिड़की दरवाजा खोलते नहीं हैं क्योंकि पोल्यूशन का डर है, तो इसलिए लगा के रखे हैं। दिन भर तो काम करते रहते हैं, तो इसलिए इस कमरे में ड्राइंग रूम में रखा हुआ है, और बेडरूम में भी एक एयर प्यूरिफायर रखा है कि रात भर सोते हैं तो उसमें चला के रखते हैं।
Neera isn't alone. A study by Medanta Medicity says half of their lung cancer patients are non-smokers.
Most of the patients were in 60s and 70s, and now the age has preponed by about decade and a half. That means there were patients in late 20s also, many in 30s, many in 40s. And when we looked at the younger population, less than 50, this figure went up to 70%. And when we looked at the less than 40 years age group, this figure went up to 100%. That's a very, very, very significant and very major and very frightening finding.
People will get their lungs choked with carbon. You may remember I had actually shown the pictures of two lungs, a person living in Himachal and a person living in Delhi. And the one whose lung was in the Himachal, from Himachal, they were baby pink. And the lungs from Delhi were like scarred with black tar. It has huge effect on the lungs, but it also has huge effects on children who are growing up.
US EPA today has a list of more than 200 called as air toxics. They occur at very small amount in the air, but cancer potency of those are very high. Even in very small and minor dosage, and if we are exposed to them over a long period of time, then that triggers cancer.
Air quality in Delhi is so horrible. Child born today would be smoking 15 to 20 cigarette equivalent from the very first breath of his life. By the time you are 30, you've been exposed to cancer-causing chemicals for 30 years and your tissues are ready to become cancerous. This is why we are seeing more and more cancer in women, more and more cancer in younger age group, and more cancers in so-called non-smokers.
Particles coming from diesel combustion, coal combustion, they are a lot more toxic than the windblown dust. In fact, WHO way back in 2012, they had specially classified diesel emissions as class 1 carcinogen for strong link with lung cancer. It is in the same bracket as tobacco smoking, asbestos, so it is really at the top bracket.
World Health Organization says that lung cancer due to pollution has increased over time. If you are vulnerable due to respiratory conditions and you are exposed to extremely high levels of pollution, then there is an immediate trigger effect. They are attributing 16% of deaths due to lung cancer to air pollution. ICMR data says that lung cancer cases have gone up from 98,278 in 2020 to 103,371 in 2022, which is a jump of nearly 5.2%.
63 out of 100 most polluted places on Earth are in India. The Air Quality Life Index report says that an average Indian could live 5 years longer if the air quality met WHO standards.
60% of India's population doesn't breathe clean air even as per the Indian national standards. This entire belt of Indo-Gangetic Plain, where more than 40% of Indian population reside, they can add up to 7 years of their life if the air quality met WHO standards.
The challenge is that the symptoms of lung cancer, which include persistent cough, chest pain while coughing, blood in sputum, weight loss, fatigue, etc., are also the symptoms of tuberculosis. So lung cancer cases often end up being misdiagnosed as tuberculosis.
Before you diagnose such a case as tuberculosis, do some confirmatory tests, for example, sputum test, bronchoscopy, CT scan, so that if a cancer case is lurking in between these tuberculosis cases, that case is not misdiagnosed and mistreated, and therefore precious time being wasted is avoided.
To protect our lungs, lead a healthy lifestyle, exercise, food, vegetables, fruits. That's the general advice. When the AQI is bad, you should not go to crowded places, you should not go to marketplaces, you should not stand at the intersections to the extent possible.
Real serious efforts by the government are absolutely necessary. It needs immediate attention and action.
This environment subject should be introduced all over the country, and then even the media has to give programs.
The National Clean Air Program, which was rolled out in 2019, is a very ambitious program that aims at reducing air pollution by 25 to 30%. So we are very, very hopeful that in years to come, India will also replicate the story of some Western countries where at some point the air was very bad and the citizens now breathe in clean air.
It still requires another 60% reduction to meet the clean air target. But it has to happen across the region and across the country.
Insist that the air is cleaned up. Now electric movement is going on, that let's convert to electric. That will help. Construction should be wet construction, not dry construction. And you penalize people who are not taking the precaution.
Air pollution is a monster which is there posing an existential crisis for the human race. It's not a chemical issue, it's not an environmental issue, it's a pure health issue.
%30% of lung cancer patients surveyed in the study were women who didn't smoke. And Dr. Sood, as you said, younger people are getting cancer more often. Now, you were saying about this double whammy of smokers, non-smokers, smokers, being at a double risk. What about people who've been affected by COVID?
A lot of people who had severe COVID, so to say, in which they had features which I termed one disease, that is ILD. So sort of features of ILD in which the lungs do get fibrosed. So if that fibrosis is still remaining in some percentage of patients, not all of them, but say about 5 to 10% of people who still require a lot of effort to go on their life. Now those are the people who are going to be getting their lungs damaged more and more as the pollution goes on. Even if they do not smoke, they use the air purifiers, but so that damage by COVID is going to be synergistically increased, and their quality of life as well as total lifespan is going to be decreased as they grow old. So once you have a healthy or young body, you cope up with these things. As you grow old, maybe in 60s or 70s, then those sort of things come in. When you need your organs to be functioning at their topmost, then your organs are not helping you. So you have so many people who are in 60s who go on to a ventilator, and they have basically a history of COVID, and now because of this pollution or maybe smoking for that matter, they do not come out of it. So those sort of things do happen, And even if they do not have that severe disease, they have persistent those symptoms of cough, sputum, shortness of breath, and that puts the quality of life also in danger.
You were mentioning earlier on that how living in in these polluted cities is actually chipping life expectancy.
Yeah, so there is a study. There have been multiple studies. The last study what I have read is that there has been a significant amount of reduction of the lifespan, about 7 to 10 years. A Delhiite or a person who's living in NCR is likely to live about 10 years lower than what he would do if he lives in a place where the pollution is not there. So that is a significant amount of your lifespan. If you supposedly you are going to go to live to age of 80, you might die at age of 70. And mind you, not only the lungs. I think you might have seen a lot of people who are having heart attacks and all those sort of. So the pollution does not only affect lungs. So it is a systemic problem, and it does affect the whole body, and you see a lot of cardiac effects, myocardial infarctions, along with whatever the lung diseases they have.
Right. In fact, my colleague Nivriti Mohan spoke with Vivek Chattopadhyay of the Center for Science and Environment about the policy logjam that's preventing adequate measures to be taken to prevent the kind of air pollution levels that we are seeing. Let's listen in.
Severe pollution levels in Delhi NCR is making its residents to even breathe. There have been reports which say that life expectancy of Delhi residents is getting reduced by 9 years, which is very scary and alarming. Now we are standing at News9 Plus's office, and behind us we cannot see the Yamuna flowing, but on the usual days we can clearly see the Yamuna flowing behind us. But right now, because of the poor visibility, Yamuna is not more than 400 meters from this point, but we cannot see it. So with us our guest Vivek Chattopadhyay, who is the principal program manager with the CSE in the air pollution department. So why is it happening? Is it usual in the month of November?
Every year what we observe that during the onset of the winter, this problem happens. The primary reason is during this period, because of the transition in the meteorological conditions, the air gets stagnant and the wind speed falls, and since the temperature is also falling, the air is becoming denser. And since Delhi NCR and particularly the Indo-Gangetic plain is landlocked, we have Himalayas and Vindhya mountains, Aravalli. So the air movement is actually gets obstructed during the winter period. And the main reason is like the pollution. Since this is a very fertile land, lot of industrialization, motorization and habitations, population density is very high in this area. And what we observe particularly in Delhi and NCR, we have very high number of vehicles compared to the entire city, entire country. So what is particularly happening this winter is that October month last year had lot of rains. So rains have a washout effect on air pollution. But this year what we are observing that the monsoon has retreated, there are hardly any rains. And the pollution is accumulating, and the main reason is like the wind speed has fallen below 10 kilometers per hour, and the meteorologists say that once it falls below 10 kilometers per hour, the dispersion of the pollution doesn't happen, and also the lower boundary layer of the atmosphere is actually very low. So the air is also not able to move up and disperse the pollutants. So, and there are several factors of polluting the air, as we know, like the primary reasons are like vehicles, power plants, industries, which pollute throughout the year because they are there, and vehicle numbers are increasing, industrialization is increasing, and those factors are there. But particularly during this period of time, biomass burning also happens because the farmers are involved in changing their crop pattern from the previous season to next season. So they need to clear the field, and in a very short window of time, and that becomes the crisis because they need to clear say within 15 days period. So although a lot of machinery has been provided to them and many efforts are being made, but still the farmers are practicing that thing. But what we need to remember that during the entire period, this biomass burning happens only for the 15 days.
Right.
But during the entire winter period, we observe very high air pollution in Delhi and NCR. The reason is like the local sources are also highly contributing to the air pollution problem.
Right.
And these are the factors. The current condition, the forecast show that it will remain about 6 days more, and thereafter the wind speed is expected to increase, and that will blow away the pollution.
6 days more.
6 days more. But still it can go up to 10 days because forecast also changes with the time. So up to Diwali, I think we have to be very careful about air pollution, and if in Diwali like we contribute all in reducing the firecracker burning, that will also help to reduce the air pollution. And we have to be very vigilant throughout the winter, I would like to say, and have to have action on ground and monitoring of the action.
Thank you, sir. So coming 6 days are going to be very difficult for Delhi NCR residents. What you need to do is to take good care, a very good care of yourself, wear mask, don't exert much and take good care.
Dr. Sood, what can people of Delhi do? Give us 5 precautions that they can do while this climate emergency, this air emergency is upon us.
So I think I'll divide it into 2 groups. One are the vulnerable groups. We all know the persons who were vulnerable at the time of COVID. So that is the same subgroup which will be vulnerable to pollution also, the elderly, the youngsters, those who have immunosuppressed diseases like say CKD or kidney diseases, chronic heart diseases, chronic liver disease. So for those I would suggest not to go outside for too long, maybe just for important work. And if they have to go, then they might as well use a N95 mask, whatever pollutants they can keep it out. For those who are having asthma and COPD, they must follow up with the whoever physician or pulmonologist they are following up, and don't wait for symptoms to worsen. So once the symptoms worsen and you go on a time when you have to get admitted to the hospital or you go on to a ventilator, which I had just discussed with one of the patients who is gone, then it is difficult to retrieve that thing. Then get the immunizations done. There are certain immunizations which we do. They are to reduce the infections which also do occur with these sort of things. So pollution only does not get pollutants inside your lungs, it also gets organisms in more density inside your lungs. So that causes more pneumonias and more exacerbations of everything else. So that also needs to be taken care of. And so there are 2 immunizations which I suggest everybody should take who are in the vulnerable group. Like one is the pneumococcal vaccine, it is every 5 years, and another is the flu vaccine which you need to take every year. The other group for persons who are not the immunocompetent group, young healthy guys, I would suggest that once you go out, maybe going to an office, a lot of people will go using a 2-wheeler or something like that. Please use N95 mask when you are traveling in this pollution. And rest of the things, don't go for workouts in early mornings and maybe evenings. And if you have to do it, maybe do it inside a gym or something like that. Or if you have to go outside, go in afternoons. And maybe I would suggest everybody to take the vaccinations. At least 2 vaccines should be taken by everybody. And rest, the nutrition part of it, keep yourself hydrated. Dehydration is also one reason where everything else will get, it's difficult for the body to keep up with the pollutants and everything else when it is dehydrated. And keep your nutrition up and get your immunity up. That is the only things which will prevent you from this thing. And maybe as a society we can put some pressure on the government machinery also, because this has been going on for too long now. I'm living in Delhi for last 15-20 years, and earlier it was not such an emergency, but now for last, apart from those 2-3 years of COVID, rest of the time it is the similar sort of things, and our kids are living in an environment where as they grow old they'll have these sort of problems which will be very difficult to treat. I am from a small town. In my place pollution was not an issue. I have lived my childhood in that place, but the children who are living here, it will be difficult for them to handle. You can see there are a lot of children also who come to my OPD and they don't go out to play because they have persistent cough, those nasal symptoms. So those sort of things also affect the mental health, apart from physical health, what we can discuss. And here I see children are not going to play outside. In this environment, I can also not tell them to go and play. And that also inhibits all their development part also.
Dr. Sood, thank you very much for joining us on the News9 Plus show. India has won a record 7 matches in a row and has cruised into the semi-finals. It's time to ask, is the cup coming home? Joining me to discuss this is veteran sports journalist Soumitra Bose. Soumitra, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thanks for having me.
What's your prediction? Is it India in the finals and getting the cup back after 2011?
India looking very strong, no doubt about it. The records, the runs, the performance, everything speaks for themselves. But cricket is a very funny game. There's something called law of averages.
Right.
And there are 2 teams who are looking very good at the same time. South Africa, they've always been branded as chokers.
Right.
They would surely like to change that tag. And India could finish as a choker, giving all the good performances. But yes, India looking extremely strong.
Right. But and how do you explain this turnaround in India's cricket fortunes? Was it the cricket bowling attack, this thing with Jasprit and the others all firing away?
In cricket, the bowlers win you matches.
Right.
In Indian conditions, of course, they do. But of course, it's a very balanced performance. If you look at the Sri Lanka match, the sheer bulk of runs and the performance of the fast bowlers, they've been incredibly good on Indian conditions, where you would expect the spinners to do well. But look at the way the fast bowlers have done.
The pace attack, formidable.
Amazing. You see, and it's very surprising that the other country fast bowlers haven't done so well, especially Australia. But I think India have been extremely balanced. The way the batsmen have batted, they got the runs, and the bowlers have finished the job. Incredible.
Right. To what do you attribute all this to? Rohit Sharma's rediscovery as a captain. Is he going to be the MS Dhoni of 2023?
Captain is as good as the team. And yes, we give credit to the captain. But, Rohit has himself run hot and cold. But when your bowlers deliver, your batsmen score the runs, and you take the catches, the captain looks good. The team looks good. I think it's a combined effort. But yes, Rohit has been a very positive captain. His field placements have been good. That's why you take the catches. And that's what's making the difference.
And let's not forget Virat Kohli, the rediscovery of the return of Virat. I mean,
amazing. He's always been the backbone of the team.
Yeah.
Whether he's captain, not captain, it really doesn't matter. Virat always brings you an additional dose of energy, the way he motivates the players, the way he's fielding, the way he's batting especially. He's in fantastic form. It doesn't matter if he's not getting his 100, but even his 90 runs make a contribution.
Right.
And those contributions do make a difference.
So, Soumitra, what do you see the areas that India really needs to improve in these last couple of matches? In any creases that we need to iron out?
Fielding will make a difference for sure. Yeah. You have to take your catches. India have done well in fielding department, and that's why they're looking so strong. Because you see, cricket is a very cruel game. Right. The margin of error is very little. You score runs, you take wickets, but you need to hold your catches. And increasingly, the semi-final matches will be very, very tough.
Right.
The teams that will make the semi-finals are all going to be contenders, serious contenders.
Yeah. South Africa, New Zealand, Australia. Which one of these do you think is going to be the most formidable opponent?
I think South Africa looked very consistent. But, if you really look at Australia, they're charging back.
Right.
Especially the way Warner is batting. They are very good at top order batsmen, and they also have the good bowlers. I think India, South Africa, and Australia.
India, South Africa, and Australia. But Soumitra, there's also this other team that everyone seems to have forgotten all about. That's Afghanistan. I mean, this is a team that's literally, homeless, if you can say that. They've been out of Afghanistan for so many years since the Taliban took over. And they've been giant killers in this tournament. Tell us about how that happened.
Giant killers need not make the semi-finals. I mean,
Right.
we've seen the history of sport.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at the Qatar Football World Cup,
Right.
Saudi Arabia beat Argentina in the very first match. But where was Saudi Arabia after that?
Right.
So yeah, it's good for the tournament, it's good for the country.
Right.
But when you realistically look at the last four, I don't see Afghanistan there. But yes,
Yeah.
it'll be incredible if they can make it. Because you see the three teams I have just named, and of course New Zealand, they've always been the dark horses.
Right.
I don't see a space for Afghanistan, but if they really make it to the last four, it'll be incredible.
It'll be incredible indeed, and that's the reason we've done this story on them called the Giant Killers. Let's watch.
Years ago, cricket was barely known in Afghanistan. Civil war of the 1980s and the 1990s pushed millions of Afghans into refugee camps in Pakistan. And that's where its cricketers got their early lessons in the sport. And when Taliban captured Afghanistan in 2021, many of their top players fled the country. In India, they found refuge, training facilities, IPL contracts, a sponsor, and the backing of the BCCI. And since then, Afghanistan has gone on to beat England, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan to script a dream run at the ICC World Cup 2023. In 2009, before Afghanistan got ODI status, they were playing nations such as Japan, Botswana, and Vanuatu in Division 5 of the World Cricket League. From there, their dizzy rise has seen them enter the top 5 in the points table at the ICC 2023 World Cup, beating England, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka on the way. A big role in the rise of Afghanistan has been played by India. Whether it's a home base at the Rajiv Gandhi International Cricket Stadium in Dehradun, IPL contracts, and a mentor such as Ajay Jadeja, and sponsorship, our cricket board and establishment have helped their neighbours earn a reputation as cricket's giant killers.
Suddenly, it made people sit up and take notice of Afghanistan, because everybody said that, look, Afghanistan can cause an upset, but to do it against defending champions England and then come back and do it against their biggest rival Pakistan, that was fantastic.
Rashid Khan is, to my mind, the biggest star of Afghanistan cricket. First of all, for what he's achieved playing for Afghanistan in Test cricket, T20s and one days, and also of the various leagues he's played.
The IPL is not just about exhibiting your skills and making money and playing for the best T20 teams in the world. If you look at somebody like a Rashid Khan and a Mohammad Nabi, these were the two who came first, and then the others followed.
Most of these cricketers, including their coaching staff, many of them have emerged from refugee camps. I think refugee camps also have a role to play, and where they bring in the spirit, the urge, the fighting spirit to play and actually kind of present yourself in the world that we are also a force and it should not be written off.
Initially, in Afghanistan cricket's formative years, they were training in Pakistan. And you've got to give credit to the BCCI. They were given facilities here in India, be it in Greater Noida, Lucknow, Dehradun. The difference it has made is the understanding of what it's like to play in India. That has been another thing that has helped Afghanistan cricket.
BCCI is using the soft power of Indian diplomacy. They are carrying it forward. We all know that BCCI has a huge equation with the Indian government. India is building so many infrastructure in Afghanistan, power, water, education, everything. So this cricket is just another extension.
Afghanistan cricket obviously needed a home ground to play their games. The ICC games to get promoted to the senior levels, to the higher levels. So they had a first home ground in Noida, then in Dehradun. From Noida to Dehradun alone is a significant progression for Afghanistan cricket.
Ajay's main role here in this Afghanistan team is to give them the composure. When you play 50 overs, you have to build your innings, pace it over, and you have to show the composure and the focus to score runs.
Ajay Jadeja has, a deeper know-how of these conditions. I mean, you look at, Afghanistan's two matches in Chennai. I mean, the first match against New Zealand, they opted to field, but they were chasing a higher total. They could not chase it. And in the second game against Pakistan, they were able to chase 280. So you can see the influence of someone like Ajay Jadeja there, that he was able to mentor their batting.
It is easier to sponsor a lesser known team, but also get the maximum mileage out of your branding. But at the end of the day, you need branding. You don't expect Afghan people to buy Amul butter, right? But you would expect a lot of people to buy Amul butter in India. I think it is a very strategic and important role or move that Amul have done to put your branding in Amul.
I think it was just pure joy, pure emotion. What we saw that day was just, an Afghan player who was really happy with what his team had achieved. And you saw a fellow cricketer who was happy for another cricketer's achievement. I think that was the joy that really came out.
It is probably a celebration because don't forget that Afghanistan and Pakistan have played very close matches and Afghanistan have lost most of the time. So any win like this in a World Cup in front of an Indian crowd always helps. It helps them to boost. And Irfan Pathan has always been an emotional person. He's always expressed himself very well, both on and off the ground. And this was just another form of expression.
They've come along so good. Unfortunately for me, the fact is that from the 2019 World Cup to this World Cup, in the 4 years, they only played 29 ODIs, which is just not enough for a team to consistently raise their game. Their game can go to the next level only when in the intervening 4 years between one-day World Cups, they play more ODI.
They have shown everybody that, look, we're not here just to cause one or two upsets. We are a team that can take on any of the other top teams.
They have a massive role to play in the development and the improvement of subcontinental cricket. You will not be surprised to see them one of the 6 teams that will qualify for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, where T20 cricket has been admitted as one of the sports. So if they can reach Olympics by being one of the top 6 nations, it will be a dream come true for the country.
And from Afghanistan, another neighbor, Soumitra, Pakistan. What happened to the Pakistani cricket team? They've simply imploded.
So there's something wrong with their sports. Sandeep, it's just not cricket, it's their hockey as well.
Right.
And also their squash. I mean, Pakistan, the world knew for their hockey. The world knew for their cricket.
And for squash.
And squash as well.
Right.
But if you look at their performance, there's something majorly wrong.
Right.
Maybe it's a reflection of how the management works there.
Right.
And it's a reflection of how the management works in India. So this is nothing wrong with the players. These same players, more or less the same team, beat India in the T20 World Cup.
Right.
But look at this, probably the consistency is not there, probably the motivation is not there. And when a team goes downhill, it goes downhill. Right. Until unless you make a rearguard action like something like Australia did.
Right.
Look at England. I mean, Pakistan and England have been the biggest drawbacks, or should I say, the stories of the negative stories of this World Cup.
Yes.
And they have not done any good to cricket.
Right. And there were all those memes I remember of the British Prime Minister being asked to get his team to work 70 hours a day.
70 hours a day, yeah.
But meanwhile, my colleague Geeta Datta interviewed Pakistani media personality Mubashir Luqman on his investigation into the conflict of interest in the Pakistani cricket team that resulted in the PCB chairman resigning. Let's watch.
Tell me one thing. How many chief selectors were there in India for the World Cup? I mean, you had so many teams, X number of teams. How many chief selectors were there? Only one.
Yeah.
Inzamam. I mean, why? What is it that you find it necessary to be over there as a chief selector? You selected your team and you sent them. Now it is up to the local committee over there, the captain and the manager and the coach and whoever chooses the playing 11. Why do you have to be there when no other chief selector of any other team is there? I mean, are you doing things that nobody can even dream of? Why won't we object? Why won't we ask questions? Why would you find it hurting? And why would you find it, demoralizing? Mickey Arthur should know he could never uplift the morale of the team because he was always on Zoom. He's not with them. I mean, how can he talk about, creating a spirit and all that? For a physical sport, for a ground sport, a coach or a manager or whatever, you have to be a part of the team. You have to be part of the locker room, their dressing room. You have to be a part of their highs and lows, not just greet them on Zoom and say, hello, how are you? And Allah khair salam. No, that's not the way things work.
You also talked very specifically have mentioned in one of your videos about Inzamamul Haq having some business interests in India and also, visiting India very often. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I'm probing about that. I said I'm probing about that. And it has been pointed out to me by many people, by at least 3 people. And I'm trying to gather evidence about that. And the day I do, I will tell you. I'll tell you that. I said that first the players tried to blackmail the board and the board was reluctant. And the board was, no, it's not possible. So the players said, we are not going to play. That was just before the World Cup. So in steps Mr. Inzamamul Haq, and he tells the board not to worry. I'll make sure that the boys play and, they give their best and blah, 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 blah. So, and then he comes back after a while and he says, I've spoken to the players and this is the money that they want. And they said that, but that's a lot. He said, but, you have to give it. And you also have to give part of the share that PCB gets from ICC, the proceeds and all that. And that is what also players feel that they're entitled to. So once that was agreed on, then Inzamam threw a bombshell and he asked for a commission for his services. And he went back to the players and I'm told that he charged a commission from them as well. For services. So, I mean, this conflict has really helped him. My question to you is, and my question to Inzamam is, why just resign in the middle of it? When the first time I came out with it, you immediately resigned and stepped aside. Come on my show or take me to the court and tell me that I'm wrong. When you do that, you're actually trying for the steam to die out and so that, everything will be silent. You faced these allegations before, like the Justice Qayyum report you said, and you knew that for a month or so, everybody will talk about it and then you'll forget about it. And 2 victories. I mean, today if Pakistan is in semi-final, if you're hoping that it does, then a lot of this will not be talked about. And that is what probably Inzamam is hoping for. But my question is, just come and face me. And I'll show you the evidence. And you know the evidence. Or if you don't think it does exist, take me to a court.
So that was Mubashir Luqman there on Pakistan's unending troubles, not the least of which is cricket. But Soumitra, tell us, what are the other surprises that we can expect in the days ahead? Not many matches left.
Nothing. As you mentioned, Afghanistan could still make a surprise and make the last four. They're quite capable of it. They have been batting well, bowling well, fielding well. And they have the people in the back room who can really inspire them to do well. So I don't think there'll be much of surprise. More or less will go as per the script. But yes, as you rightly said, Afghanistan can still kill a few giants and then make the last four.
Right.
And if they make the last four, it's anybody's game.
Right.
Because history has shown, I mean, football history, cricket history has shown, not so much of cricket, but yes, football history has shown that always there are surprises, and surprises are good for the sport, and it will make, they have already won the hearts of many, many fans across the world, especially the Afghan fans.
Yes.
And this will be an incredible performance if they can make the last four. But otherwise, I don't think it's going to change much. The last four will go as per the script.
Right, as per the script. But has there ever been a parallel like this, Soumitra, in terms of the Afghan cricket team? You know, a team that's literally unable to go back home in the short term, and it's playing in another country. India is practically hosting the Afghan cricket team for the last few years.
In a way, things have changed for the better.
Right.
Yeah, the Talibans, who are not very sport friendly as such, have accepted cricket as a nation building tool.
Right.
You have to understand that Afghanistan is a country which identity stems from the ethnic diversity.
Yes.
Unlike India, it doesn't have a national identity.
Right.
Cricket, I guess the Taliban see as a unifying factor.
Right.
This is such a diverse country that, you know, here you have cricket, and then you have, which is largely played by the Pashtuns, then you have the Hazaras, then the Tajiks and the Uzbeks. They love football.
Right.
That's why so many football players play in Europe. So they have equally. So I think cricket can give them the identity and be a tool to unify the country, improve the sport. The Indian government has played a massive role. The BCCI has played a massive role.
Right.
It's not from here. Since 2017-18. And from 2015, you know, the Afghanistan players are used to Indian conditions. They've been in Greater Noida, they've been in Dehradun, now in Lucknow. I think they've got all, and they also have Indian advisors, like you have today Ajay Jadeja in their dressing room. So I think two things always make a difference in communication is the language and what you eat.
Right.
One is through your mouth, one is through your stomach.
Right.
And Afghanistan have both the ingredients, and of course they have the skills to match the big boys.
Right, they have the skills to match the big boys indeed. And in fact, even as we speak, there is this humanitarian crisis on in Pakistan, where a whole lot of Afghan refugees, hundreds of thousands of them, are being pushed back into Afghanistan. And let's not forget that the refugee camps of Pakistan is where cricket actually began. But that's a story that we'll be tracking very closely on the News9 Plus show. Thank you very much for joining us, Soumitra. News and current affairs continue on the News9 Plus show. Thanks for watching.